about 3.5 months ago, I tried to run 100 miles. My dog just dropped her ball. And it didn't go very well, actually. I didn't make it in time to the checkpoint at mile 68.8, whatever it was. And so stopped. And in 5 days' time, I'm running 110k in the Lake District for the Seven Valleys Ultra. And like, I like for the 100 miler, like I wrote an article on it, I made a video on it, I did spend time reflecting on it, but the reflection was more on like what I got out of it as a human rather than like the actual practicalities of running and how I can improve on what happened. And yeah, given that I'm doing the same distance in like 5 days time, I was like, maybe I should actually like sit down and have a little look at things. So I thought, why not also just like, you know, put it into, I don't know, a video of some kind. So I'm basically just going to talk through how not to run 100 miles and to share all of the pain, hurt and mistakes I personally made, and yeah, hopefully transfer that into a growthful experience in 5 days and not do them again. Really, like the before stage wasn't ideal. So 5 weeks before I ran 100 miles, I didn't run 100 miles, 5 weeks before I attempted the 100 miler, I ran 50 miles, which I presumed would be okay, and with my coach, he also presumed it would be okay. And it definitely had an effect on me for the attempt at the 100 miler. My heart rate was still super high, my HRV was super low, and every run I did kind of between the 50 miler and the 100 miler, there was just problems, you know, it was just like a general tiredness. My heart rate was always high when I was doing like an easy effort. There was just stuff that wasn't right. I wasn't sleeping properly. I was very I had kind of every overtraining symptom basically. And anyway, the week leading into the 100, I didn't sleep too well because I was just so like, oh my God, what am I going to be attempting? I've been training for like a year for this, so it was quite like it felt like a very big thing. And yeah, there was like an accumulation of sleep deprivation the week leading up to it, and the night before I slept, like my crew who came with me, like I was like, you guys may as well have like the beds because you're gonna be like, you know, just sit around up all day, and also I need to get up at like 2 AM anyway and I'm gonna make noise, so I may as well sleep in like, there's like a little living room in like the B&B. So I slept in this like camp bed, it was so uncomfortable. Didn't go to sleep till about 11 and I woke up at 2, which wasn't great. So I had like 3 hours sleep, which obviously isn't ideal, but you know, the night before events you don't really sleep well, but also like I got up way too early and just kind of faffed around, and yeah, like I didn't need to leave till like, what, 5:20? So I don't know what I filled that time with, but just faffing and exhausting myself. Then into the meat of things. So to give the context of the day, it was like 29 degrees, which is hot. I'm from England and we never get that kind of heat, and so I was not acclimatized at all to that level of heat. And really like the summary points are that it eventually all amalgamated together until it came to a point where I had lost all hope that I could finish, and I lost all hope at about mile 40, and really it was all a big suffer fest, and I don't do this to suffer, like that's not fun. You know, the challenge is a big part of it, but when it's just grim, it's like, this isn't fun, you know? And I'm sure if you do these kind of things, you relate to that kind of weird line where it's fun but it's painful, and then where it's painful and there's zero fun at all. So blisters for me have always been a problem. All my ultras, my feet have been a big problem, and I feel like I've done so much to try and sort my feet out, and this one, they cause so much grief. So I'm gonna take it on like a chronological order. So we started at 6 AM and I was like, wow, it's hot. Like it was like, I don't know, 15 degrees at like 6 AM. And then basically it wasn't until mile 26, 27 until I was gonna see my crew. There was a checkpoint at mile 8, I think. And then, yeah, there was like an 18-mile section, which was without any, you know, checkpoints or crewing or any kind of aid. And it was so hot. Like the first, like, till like mile 8, the first checkpoint, I was like, okay, this is hard. And you know, you just kind of settling into it, and like the idea of I'm going to be running for probably 38 hours was quite terrifying and daunting, but you know, it just gradually dissipated. But yeah, like my heart rate was super high, running felt really hard, and I could just tell the heat was really bothering me. And Anyway, you just crack on. Anyway, at about mile 15, like blisters started occurring on my feet, which is like 15 miles in, like that's so weird. And like, you know, training runs of 20 miles, 25 miles, that's not normal. Normally in an event, like I'll blister around mile 35 if my foot care's been bad, but beyond that, like I ain't blistering. So yeah, mile 15, my feet started blistering, and I could feel like all the hot spots forming, but because I had crew with me, I was seeing crew, yeah, this is big failing on my part, was like, it was almost like I just delegated all responsibility away from myself. Like, I remember feeling these like hot spots flare up and being like, oh well, the checkpoint's in like 2 miles. It was like 5 miles, so I didn't do anything about it. Got to the checkpoint at mile 26 and my feet were just like ruined and so painful. The photographer actually took photos when I was running into the checkpoint. I look like I'm smiling, I'm actually like severely grimacing. Yeah, the heat was just mad. And part of one of the main problems as well, which, you know, I must have done at about mile 12 till mile 16, was I put music on. Now I never run with music for the main, especially, well, in long runs and ultras, because I find that the effects are really negative in that you get like a short temporary high and a short temporary like boost, but then soon after you get the crash that comes with that, and it's like a dopamine high and then the crash, and yeah, it exaggerates the up and downs that you get in ultras anyway. Yeah, it's like a drug. It kind of helps, but then it doesn't. I put music in to try and help myself, and it definitely didn't help me. It distracted me away from the moment, but it also made me less aware of like general self-care. And again, it took me away from now. And then when I was like returned to now, when I stopped the music, it was then way harder because I was back in even more of a low than I was already in. And mainly I was just like entirely overconsumed for the first 6 hours by the idea that I was going to be running all day in this heat and then tomorrow all day in this heat, and I just could not fathom how on earth I was going to do that. I'm super like aware of like what that thinking does and to stop it, but it was just so strong and so like, you know, with the heat and the pain in my feet, and it all just came together. It was just like, holy shit, like the doubt was so high. That stayed with me for the whole 70 miles, but just kind of exponentially kept going up until I hit the point of, I've got no hope of this working. Yeah, then when I got into the checkpoint, it was just like, oh my god, so nice to see people, and also my feet painful. And because it was so hot, all I was like craving to eat was like watermelon, orange slices, which, oh my god, it was so good, but also like there's no calories in that, there's barely any carbs in, well, like in terms of how much actually you need to eat to get enough carbs, so like definitely didn't fuel properly. And then that kind of just carried on for the whole event, you know, like most people don't eat enough. Anyway, it was then a 7-mile stretch to the next checkpoint, and the heat, I was just really struggling in the heat, it was just so hot. Another part, again, which is, you know, for sure what I'm making sure isn't going to happen this time, is I didn't fully study the route. Like I recce'd like 35 miles of the route, and part of it also was like, it's nice to not know the route, because like part of the novelty of events is like, well, the novelty of a new exploration of a new place. So like that was a big thing, but it also meant that like I didn't really study like the route profile. Like I knew the distances between checkpoints, but I like wasn't expecting climbs, I wasn't expecting certain things at certain times, which when I was in a state of being unable to pay attention to right now, but just needing just to keep on going and hopefully end up somewhere else, it made it harder because it was just demoralizing. And from mile 26 to 34, there were so many climbs that I wasn't expecting, and yeah, my feet were just so painful. In like my first ever ultramarathon, like I didn't even know that foot care was a thing, and I wore like cheap Nike socks, really hard Solomon shoes on really hard ground, and my feet were awful. And I kind of learned how to tolerate it in that experience. It was like, okay, I'm not causing any like long-term damage, it's just a blister, and the pain, you know, it's always there, but it can become a bit less in your face. So like I could tolerate it, but it was just one big thing in the mix, which was making everything else seem a little bit more spiky and hard. And I definitely didn't take enough care of my feet, and definitely, because I've coped with blisters before, it was almost like, oh, my feet would get blistered, it'd be fine. And yeah, I think I've really learned, okay, but they don't have to, and it really sucks. Yeah, I then also, in between mile 26 and mile 34, there was like a big like water thing, which actually looks like a sewer when you look at the video, but anyway, I like just threw myself in that, which felt amazing, and it definitely helped my heat situation. But also then I had soaking wet feet, which obviously then creates a huge problem with your foot care and blisters. So I had wet feet from that point on. And then from here, like I started to pick up a little bit into the 34-mile checkpoint. I started to feel a bit better. The blister pain was kind of becoming a new normal. and yeah, my energy and my mood was just lifting a little bit. I was really concerned at how hard I was finding it, and the fact that, you know, I still had like the midday heat to kind of get through, but I was feeling better. And really, like, because I was so uncomfortable in the moment, it all became about getting somewhere else, which meant that my self-care was just gone. It was like I was so unattentive to what I needed to do right now because I was just rushing to get to the next bit, which again, you know, is a product of extreme discomfort, but also it's 100% a focus and attention thing, which, you know, going forward, I'm definitely going to be hyper vigilant to that happening. Like, self-care in the moment, and you hear it all the time, you know, like if you see it or you feel something, like, do it straight away. Great to hear, difficult to do. And I think for me, I really learned through experience, and if I, you know, the pain I experienced in this event, I feel like it's going to be strong enough to make sure that I like actually act on it. And then yeah, got to the checkpoint mile 34, and kind of the same thing as the last one. I didn't eat enough, like had some fruit really, and it was just hot, but I was in good spirits. I was in really good spirits, and yeah, started really well. It was like a big climb up to the highest point at Lava Hill. Like amazing views, like the clouds started coming in, which is really good because it blocked the sun for a little bit. And yeah, just an experience of like, I'm actually enjoying this for like 5 minutes, and it was really nice. Yeah, it was all pretty good. And then I went to go run like down from the top of Lava Hill down to the bottom, and my feet just exploded even more. Like there was just blisters, just intensified. Underneath my pinkies, it was just the worst, side of my toes. Basically, I'm convinced of this, that because of the heat, my feet were way bigger, and then that just caused way more friction on my feet and extra sweating, and my feet haven't been prepared for that environment. And my shoes were definitely wrong for the terrain, like so wrong. Like I wore Innovate Terrafly, blah, 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 I don't know, Innovate shoes, which are not made for grass. And Scotland is basically just grass, especially southern Scotland. Yeah, so like jagged grass, it was just, my feet were slipping all over the place, plus the heat, yeah, it wasn't great. But the pain was just like, oh man, like, you know, I'd been going for like maybe 10 hours at this point, 10, 11 hours, and yeah, I tolerated this pain for probably the last 8 hours, and it was just getting more intense and more intense. But I knew it's gonna peak and then it would just plateau again and it'll be fine. And I had about 6 miles until the next checkpoint. And then anyway, then there was like 3 other big climbs which I didn't know about because I didn't study the route profile, so was just demoralized. Is that the word? Like, you know what I mean, like when like you just like, really? And then going up the hills, I was like excited because the pressure on the front of my feet would be relieved, and then all the back of my feet were blistered. So then going up the hill, oh, it was just very painful and very uncomfortable, plus just the tiredness and lethargy that comes with running in that heat for a long distance. And at this checkpoint, mile 40, I was in okay spirits, but my feet were just ruined and my energy was definitely starting to dip. But you know, you experience that, your energy dips and it comes back up and it dips again, and it doesn't, the energy thing doesn't really scare me because I know that it can come back up, but it was mainly just the pain and yeah, the heat. Anyway, I spent about half an hour at this checkpoint, which again is the huge lesson for me, is like way too long. And it was because like my lovely humans who came to crew me were trying to help me with my feet and trying to like make them just less painful. Then the ambulance guy was like, oh, I need to let me put this on it, let me try this, and then before I knew it there was like a whole team around me, and then it just took forever and it didn't really help. Basically left that checkpoint at I think about 6:30, got there about 6, and was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna miss the cutoff for the next checkpoint, and I've never been near the cutoffs, so that was really terrifying. And then basically from that point onwards it all just went downhill because I was really rushing. So the next checkpoint, like I was told, and what the event says on like all the websites and all the GPX data, is that the next checkpoint's at 54 miles. It turns out it wasn't until 58 miles, and like the difference between 14 miles and 18 miles when you've already ran 40 is quite a lot, especially to the spirit when you just want to get to the next point. It's no fun when you're just trying to get it to end. There was no enjoyment in the moment because of the pain. Yeah, so this was an 18-mile section, basically just being in extreme pain and terrified of not making it on time. I was running when I shouldn't have ran. Like I was like basically running way too fast, and then I get far too exhausted to have to like stop and then just basically just be like, so I'd walk for a bit and then run way too fast and then have to stop, rather than just sustaining like a nice steady pace. Also because I was rushing and I was just fretting and so terrified of not making it on time, I stopped eating properly. I stopped just taking all the self-care stuff just entirely out the window, and I just became so focused on I just need to get there. And that mindset for 18 miles it's quite a long time, especially when there's a lot of elevation involved. The urgency in rushing creates such a like discontentment within, and it just makes it really awful. The thing I didn't do as well is like I didn't, like, you know, for example, I knew that I needed to eat and I knew all these things, but it was like, no, I just need to get there. And I didn't actually just stop for a minute and just think, right, let's actually just calculate the pace I need to be going at, how long I've actually got, how far I've actually got. It was just that I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to make it, rather than having any rational moment of like, okay, we can make it, but let's just take a minute and figure out, you know, how to make this tolerable. I didn't do that. Eventually I was running, you know, like just severe pain in my feet, and just burst into tears. And like, crying is never really my form of expression. Like, I'm jealous of people that can just cry. Like, it's just not really how I express. But I just burst into tears. I just could not stop crying. I was like running and like, just crying. I eventually rang my friends Kate and Rachel, who were crewing for me, and I was like, I'm not gonna make it. I was crying, like saying, I'm not gonna make it, I'm not gonna make it. So after a good cry and kind of speaking with my friends Kate and Rachel on the phone, they very kindly and assuredly, is that a word? Assuredly? Not the word I'm looking for. Anyway, basically just said, slow down, you'll be fine. You can make it, but like, slow down, have some food. And yeah, the difference it made just to like speak to somebody rather than just like churning away internally in my own brain. But by this point, I had like entirely lost hope. Like, it had kind of been building up all day, and you know, you just keep getting on with it, you keep getting on with it. And I was now, what, like 18 hours into the run? I had just thought, I can't do this, and I had no hope of making it to the checkpoint in time. I had no hope of, you know, actually finishing. And then anyway, this whole kind of confusion as to like where actually is the checkpoint. You know, I thought it was mile 54, it turns out it was actually mile 58, and that is like, I was like running and my watch was saying like, oh, go straight ahead, and straight ahead there was no path, and it was like getting dark, and I was like, it's very confusing because the path goes right, but all my navigation, even OS maps, was saying go straight ahead. I just kind of stood around like, oh, like, I don't want to make a mistake here. I saw somebody called Lynn who came up behind me, and we kind of chatted earlier on in the race. She went on to finish it because she's a legend, and she was like literally falling asleep on her feet. Like, she hadn't eaten barely anything for the whole event. She was falling asleep. Anyway, we like kind of stuck together, and then we eventually got out the forest onto this road section, and it was pitch black. We had no head torches on. It was a winding country road in southern Scotland, and we were just, you know, falling down this hill and down this road. You know, like, we'd see a car and we'd just shout and then jump into a bush, and because my head torch was in my backpack, hers was in her backpack as well, we were both just tired and being very irresponsible, but nothing bad happened. So it's funny because we were both like basically just saying to each other how much this sucks, and you know, often in that scenario, I think if you have one person who's kind of like feeling okay and encouraging, we can bring each other back up, but we were both just like together descending down into darkness, like, this is shit, silence for 5 minutes. Oh, this is really shit, silence for 5 minutes. Anyway, we eventually made it down to this point where my crew had driven up to see whereabouts I was, and they said, like, basically I thought we were like almost there, like, you know, 5 minutes away, and they said, you've got another 2 miles until Moffat, which is where the checkpoint was, and from where you are now, it will take 50 minutes to walk there, and it was like 23:15, so 11:15, and the cutoff was at midnight, so we were just like, fuck. So just ran for it, and bearing in mind, hadn't been able to run for probably like the last half an hour due to just intense pain, like blistered feet, just awful. So anyway, just ran, and then the last mile into the checkpoint, like, I was so furiously angry, you know, irrationally angry, but so frustrated that, you know, the data wasn't right, and then it wasn't 54 miles, it's 58 miles, and therefore I was pacing myself for a certain distance, then had to sprint, because the last maybe 2 miles actually into the checkpoint, especially the last mile, I was doing like 9-minute miles. Bearing in mind, I couldn't run at all, and I'm talking like 13-minute miles, you know, so like, yeah, but I just remember the rage, and like, you can see on my face in the video, like, I was just so angry. And again, this is a big mistake, is because I'd lost all hope, because I'd lost any kind of sense of like personal autonomy of my behaviours and my decisions and my focus, I did a silly thing, and I ran straight, you know, ridiculously fast. I didn't need to run that fast to get there, you know, like I got there at like 11, so like, you know, had loads of time, could have gone way slower, but just, yeah, running on fear of what if I don't make it, and anger, and yeah, that then meant that I was really emotionally pent up, that when I got there, I couldn't really eat anything because I'd ran too fast, my heart rate was too high, I was too just emotional, yeah, you know, the whole thing about ultras is playing the long game, and for me a big lesson is, you know, emotions actually really aren't helpful, especially when you're involved in way too much. And you know, of course, you know, I'm not blaming myself for all of that, because I think it's just an accumulation of all of the day. It was just an experience, but something I'm definitely more aware of this weekend is like, right, just take a minute, you know, because yeah, there was too much emotion involved. And that also was related to the music I was listening to. Like when I never listened to music, but I was using it to try and help, and it actually just made things way more intense, way more emotional, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I tried to eat a pot noodle and ate about a third of it. Actually, my crew made me one, and I was like, it's too mushy, so they had to make me another one, because I'm such a stupid high maintenance person. I'm actually not really, but in that moment I am. Yeah, tried to like fix my feet, but they were just fucked. There was nothing able to fix. So like, then we were going into the night section. I had my pacer Rachel with me. I was really excited for it. But again, a big mistake here was that I had just entirely delegated all of my responsibility of myself to Rachel. Almost like I had to have so much focus throughout the day, and I'd really struggled to focus because of the heat, the exhaustion, my pain in my feet, that it was almost like, oh, finally, like, right, this is Rachel's, you know, task now. And I lost all, yeah, like focus and care and self-care, and with eating, with drinking, with layers, I was just gone. I remember also, before actually leaving this checkpoint, I said to like the race director Ian and like all my crew and basically everybody I saw that like I'd lost all hope and that I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it in time to the next checkpoint. And I kept saying it and kept saying it and kept saying it. And I'm not really someone who, like, I'm realistic, but I latch on to the fact that things will be okay, you know. So it was a really weird experience, I guess, to reflect on, to like see myself behaving like that. Not that it's a bad thing, it's just, you know, a situational experience, but it's really peculiar how certain variables and all of that can create you into, yeah, to see different parts of yourself that I guess you don't normally see. Anyway, yeah, so me and Rachel left mile 58, and it wasn't until mile 72 where the next checkpoint was, but I think it was actually mile 76 where the next checkpoint was. Yeah, so basically, like, as like a, I guess to make this not last like 10 hours, is the biggest mistake was like just stopping caring for my needs. And I think part of that is having a pacer, you know, because it's almost like you just delegate responsibility. I think part of it is also that, you know, me and Rachel are best friends, and she has the personality type and a sense of being about her that she's authoritative when needs to be, but she is more on the side of like really listening and just being really gentle and loving and like not wanting to see anybody in pain. So she probably wasn't actually, I think she was the right person for the moment, because I think I probably shouldn't have continued, you know, like I think I would have, like my recovery from this took about 6 weeks. I think on reflection, I think for like a section like that during the night time, I think somebody who's a bit more stern and or nobody, where I'm like, shit, I'm on my own, I have to keep some kind of alertness when I'm in the dark, up these big hills with big drops, in the middle of the night with no sleep, you know, like I feel like that experience of you having to find more, I think will be unveiled in that element. But I think because I had somebody who I was almost giving all the responsibility of myself to, that wasn't there. I felt really awake. I felt hurting, tired, and I kept stopping every probably 5 minutes to like literally like bend over on my poles and like just go, everything hurts. And then we'd finally get moving, 5 minutes later I'd stop, and then yeah, we'd put music on, again put really emotionally sad music on, which got me moving. But then again, it's just highs and lows, and yeah, I've definitely come to the conclusion that music isn't good during. I think the last 30 to 60 minutes I'm happy with music, because I don't need to spare any kind of emotional energy or physical energy, but yeah, during, for me, music's not the one. Yeah, but I felt really awake. And then it got to about 4 AM, so being going for about 4 hours, we were going at about a pace of like a mile an hour, like really slow, maybe a tiny bit faster than that. And got to 4 AM, started getting light, and tiredness like no other just hit me. And it wasn't even tiredness, it was like I was drunk. Like if you hear the videos of me speaking, of me moving, like I literally like I've had like 5 bottles of wine. Now it'd probably been about 4 hours since I'd eaten anything. I couldn't eat because my digestive system was fine, there was no kind of nausea, there was nothing. It was just my throat couldn't swallow, and I can't explain it, and my tongue was like swollen. I might put a picture of my tongue on the screen, maybe not because it's a bit grim, but yeah, something weird happened with my throat and my tongue, which was, yes, I couldn't eat anything, and because I just basically fallen asleep on my feet, I wasn't drinking anything. So by 4 AM, you know, bearing in mind I've been running the whole day before in the heat and not really eating enough, this is now almost 24 hours later, and yeah, I've not eaten for 4 hours or slept or drank anything. So I eventually got to the point of, yeah, right, I need to have a little nap. So I had a little nap, took, you know, like 5 minutes. Instantly felt a tiny bit better because I was literally falling asleep on my feet, and the pain of the tiredness and the, like, all of that was just horrific. But then after that, it just went, just got like, I didn't think things could get much worse, but they definitely got progressively worse. Yeah, I just wasn't there. When we went through this gate, and I kept saying to Rachel before it, like, Rachel, there's cows after that gate, we can't go through there. And I was just imagining cows, and then obviously there were no cows, got through the gate. You know, like I call them Stonehenge men, I don't think that's their name, but like, you know the emoji that's like a Stonehenge man face, or like Stonehenge? I don't know, like the big rock faces. That, like, the floor was made out of them, and I was literally just like, whoa, what is going on with the floor? Like, Rachel, can you see that? And she was like, no. And then I kept having like small little bursts of, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it, and then nope, not gonna make it, because this is shit. Anyway, by 7 AM, still hadn't really eaten any, well, still hadn't eaten anything, I hadn't drank anything. I was just completely like gone, like there was just nothing left. I've been going for about 25 hours now, because 7 hours to cover 11 miles. We're still about 7-8 miles away from the checkpoint, and I think the cutoff was at 7:30, so we weren't making it. But I guess on reflection, like the whole focus thing, like I paid no attention to the time. I paid no attention to, I think part of me always thought I would make it. I never thought, oh, I'm not gonna make it, but I was so just not with it. I was just so not focused. I was so just, you know, because of pain in my feet all day, which resulted in discomfort. That's okay when it's just that, but then when you haven't eaten anything, then when it's been like 15 degrees hotter than you normally run in, and the sun's been out all day and you've probably got sunstroke, and then when you've not drank anything, and when you're lacking in salt and you're definitely like borderline hyponatremic, then you have no focus, and yeah, I just wanted to stop. But I kept saying, I'm not stopping unless I don't make it on time. But I do also kind of remember a slight inclination of like, if I go slower then I won't make it on time, and then I don't have to carry on. But that was never like a concluded like decision in my mind, but I remember it kept popping up. But yeah, I've never felt so bad in my entire life. But yeah, basically like it's the whole ultramarathon thing, which is what intrigues me so much, is that it's really so little about running, it's really so little about your fitness, it's all about self-management, looking after yourself moment by moment by moment, and listening to your needs and tuning in with what you really need right now. And the second you neglect that, there is a backlog that's created, and you play the whole, you know, rest of the run catching up on it, but exponentially, until you just can't. And I do believe, I don't think Rachel believes this or people who are with me, but I do feel like if I made it to checkpoint on time, had like some hot food, because all I wanted was just some hot food and like a coffee, I think I would have been okay. But I think it was just that awful stage, you know, not having slept for, yeah, a whole day, 24 hours, well, more, 33 hours, whatever it would be, with getting up early. And then, yeah. So, yeah, reflection really. Basically going into this weekend, I cannot let my feet get that ruined. They've always been a problem in all ultramarathons I've done. They're way better, but this time, yeah, I think just the wrong shoes to the terrain, poor self-management, which was a result of discomfort, increasing discomfort and rushing, and this just overbearing sense of how on earth am I gonna run for another 38 hours or however long it was, you know, like I couldn't. And I think that's the whole thing of it being your first time and it's a novel experience, but I think when the experience is really intense, there's less novelty and there's more just like trepidation, because there's no comprehension how it can happen, and that can either just, you just let it go and you're like, well, I'm just going to do what I can do, or you go the complete opposite way, which I did, and you go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, just need to keep moving, just need to keep moving. And then when there's intense discomfort and you need to, well, you don't want to sit with it anymore, then you just want to go faster for it to be over. Basically, there's a huge importance in hope, and I'm not a big kind of, not believer, but I'm not really like a big shouter-outer about like hope in life, because I don't know, hope can be a fragile thing to hold on to, and it can be a way of excusing the need for you to take meaningful action sometimes. But I guess trust is a better word for me. Yeah, to trust that it will be okay for you to be able to be here now. And I think for me it was like, okay, right here, right now, there's way too much pain, way too much discomfort, so I just need to get to the next point, and that creates rushing, it creates urgency, and it makes the experience just intolerable. My plan is take care of my feet better, definitely keep them dry. I'm going to bring spare shoes in a drop bag. I've got one person crewing for me, which I think is going to work out, it might not, in terms of locations, because there's not really many checkpoints I can be met at. I think that's going to be better, because as much as I love a good social chin wag, yeah, 25 minutes at checkpoints is ridiculous. And it makes me stiff, you lose the flow, and then you're chasing cut-off times when you don't actually need to be. And really, at checkpoints, I'm gonna try and eat proper food rather than just snacks the whole time. Yeah, no music, not listen to any music until basically the last 5 miles. It's like you get to, I think, like a 400-500 meter climb, and then the last 5 miles, it's all downhill into the finish. Then I'm gonna put on some music if I feel like it, because like, yeah, that'll be wonderful. Actually, downhill after 65 miles isn't wonderful. But in my brain right now, my body that isn't hurting and it feels quite fresh, it sounds quite wonderful. So anyway, yeah, I'm just hoping for an experience where I'm open to it and where I just want to take care of myself. I think that's my number one. Then everything else should come from there. So we'll see. I think the only thing I am a little bit like scared about is that there's going to be a lot of darkness up high on mountains on my own, which like, I mean, I might not be a man, I might find people, but normally by the end stage people are all spread out. But fear's good apparently, so I guess we'll just go with it. But yeah, anyway, it's way too much talking. Bye.